So here we're gauging based off of a 5-day volume weighted average price specifically. I do use 1-day and 5-day VWAPs as benchmarks, for lack of a better phrase, starting points that I don't know if 1 day ago or 5 days ago are relevant or important to this stock, but I might start there to gauge how has this stock acted over the last 5 days on a volume adjusted or volume weighted basis. Particularly with something like this Verizon chart, I don't know if we necessarily would have known to start 5 days ago. Like, does this look like a particularly critical day? It looks like a continuation of a trend up. So my instinct would have been to launch a VWAP from 7 days ago, kind of glancing at this chart. However, I wanted to point out specifically because look at the amount or number of times that we've pulled back to that effective VWAP level and found some support. Not huge magnitude of trade, like we're talking about, 1.5% up and off that VWAP tops. But it definitely shows that this is the unlock code for that combination lock I was referring to, right? This tends to show respect of both the VWAP and the deviation band, and it looks like an intraday chart. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start marking up where we would expect to need to launch multi-day VWAPs from. So obviously we're going to take a stab at the highest high and lowest low days as our kind of boundaries or initial launch points. I would like to know about the prior day's VWAP as well. I'm not sure if that pullback is going to be right to that prior day's VWAP or not. I'm kind of imagining or drawing in what I would need the VWAP to look like in order to observe kind of clarity and pullback. So let's go and do this. We're going to actually load up 2 copies of the date VWAP study. The first one I'm going to set to highest high and lowest low. Right, I'm an idiot. So that will grab the lowest low, but the highest high is actually right up here. So it launched a VWAP only a couple candles ago. I'll need to manually go back and set this. So we're going to grab the high of the 25th. So we're going to set this to a date time. I'm going to set this to 11:25. And we're going to set this to the high of day. Turn the study on because I'm getting better about not forgetting that. All right. Now, at a glance, I don't think we necessarily need the deviation bands on this red VWAP, so I'm going to turn those off just to make for a cleaner example for right now. Yeah, launching from this day of recent highs, or this important recent swing high, for lack of a better phrase, gives us a boundary above which we must violate in order for the market to retain its bullish flavor. As long as it's below this red VWAP, gosh, like we said before, if it can't make it above the average, then what are we doing hoping that it's going to get far above the average? Why would we be bullish on a stock that can't even win at its average? Notice around here, there's a bit of struggle at that VWAP, a bit of consolidation, having already sold off very aggressively and then rebounded up to it. And rebounded up to it with almost like a type 1 off of this green rising VWAP from the lows. Let's do this for a second. Let's actually just, I'm going to hide this study. So let's just focus on the VWAP up and off of the important lows on this NVIDIA chart. Beautiful support right at the VWAP, and then fast lane activity all the rest of the time on upwards, right? The definition in our minds of fast lane versus slow lane is critical to understanding the kind of tone or tenor of a market. We just want to make sure that we're not trying to play a reversion when the market has just broken out into a massive fast lane and is likely to stay there and continue its path upwards. So same kind of principles here. Strong fast lane activity, effectively finding support. Doesn't quite get down to support, but effectively finding support, trying to find support, and as it breaks underneath and cannot get back out of the fast lane, or out into the fast lane, excuse me. Much more calm and sideways behavior when we're stuck in this slow lane. Quickly gets back up there, breaks flag higher, you know, still never quite challenged this rising VWAP off the lows. Now, what would happen, or what would this look like if the market were going to be breaking down and moving beneath this VWAP? Well, you'd probably expect it to come down and actually challenge the VWAP. And we'd expect it to retest multiple times before cracking below and then coming up to confirm, right? We would expect that there's going to be some sort of resistance declaration that occurs at or around that that VWAP. Yeah, notice it couldn't even get down to the VWAP, much less did it want to spend a lot of time there. And we had rising but flattening, I should say. It was uptrending, but it was slowing down activity. So we're still in a bullish environment up and off this prior low. Look at the deviation band support off of a multi-day deviation band here. So we're looking at the breakout day from Friday, little gap up, and it comes right back to that dev band and finds support so many different ways, so many different times. Interesting. And that so notice that looked like a very boring intraday chart. Let's swap these. Yeah, very boring sideways intraday chart. What we weren't observing is that the deviation bands came up. I didn't draw that very well. The deviation bands came up and offered even better throughout the remainder of the day. I think it was still curving upwards like this. God, I can't draw. You know what I'm referring to, the deviation band coming up and offering support as the day developed. So we're setting this to 5 days ago. Okay, we're going to hide the intraday study because again, we're doing multi-day analysis here. Yeah. Okay, so this just gave us a kind of broad benchmark at which we rejected, didn't quite touch it there, multiple times. Look at all these rejections at that VWAP before finally gapping up and over it. And gapping up and over resistance is really what gave us that oomph to the upside there. You could even make the case actually that there's broadly support being shown at that -1 deviation band. This looks kind of thin. Tyson, yeah, not a particularly heavily traded stock, but definitely an interesting observation, all that multi-day resistance that it observes before breaking higher. So that kind of gapping above resistance definitely would give you more strength to that move. Whenever you get this tight type of consolidation and then the start or some big move or multi-day move set, I'd want to know a VWAP from this day. I'd want to know a VWAP from this day. I'd want to know a VWAP from this day, because these are all critical days in the context of what's happening on today's trading day. Let's try something real fast. I'm going to apply a date VWAP from 3 days ago, a date VWAP from 2 days ago, and a date VWAP from 1 day ago. And which one? That would be 2 days ago. This is the VWAP signal line. Great. All right, so we've just drawn in multiple layers of support and resistance from prior days. You can see there's a continuation VWAP here, a continuation VWAP here, and a continuation VWAP here. Look at the wealth of support and resistance that we're able to observe using just a couple days prior VWAPs. Friday's peak kind of found resistance at around the VWAP from before the selling began. We actually, after coming back underneath, found some resistance at the prior day's VWAP twice, like a shelf of resistance before a massive, you can actually see that kind of trend line was violated to the downside right at the same time we crossed into the fast lane. Significant move down in the fast lane, rejection at the deviation band, a nice type 2 short at the end of the day. Ooh. And then look at how the chart kind of recovers on an intraday picture today. After some more aggressive selling, it gets back up into the slow lane, above the volume weighted average price, and finds support there. That is critical at telling us that the market is unwilling to stay in the fast lane lower. It is unwilling to break down below the VWAP. Where is our first point of resistance? The prior day's volume weighted average price. Do you see that shelf of resistance we have there? For a look at the bolstering support up and off of the rising intraday deviation band. So again, here we are smashed between an intraday VWAP support and a multi-day VWAP resistance. We come back up and do the same sort of thing. Different multi-day resistance, different multi-day resistance, but intraday support, right? Effective intraday support. And so we're really kind of seeing these two different dimensions colliding, right? We're seeing the different intraday and multi-day VWAPs fight and work against each other. There's no guarantee one is going to be the winner. The best thing we can do is observe how the chart develops and react to it. So here we're drawing a VWAP from that prior day. And I think actually I've set it incorrectly. Let's that's why it's red, because I've set it to the high. It's date time. There we go. Beautiful. So yeah, we can see a continuation of that prior day's VWAP trailing on inward to the current day, and then offering support out of nowhere, meaning we would not have likely known that that would be the kind of swing low we'd experienced before a pop back up towards VWAP otherwise. I'm using multiple date VWAPs here, so I'm just adding in a 5-day VWAP now. Well, we look at that. So, okay, I think I see what you were pointing me towards here. Interesting prior support at that swing low multiple times on Wednesday's trading, yeah. And then here kind of ping-ponging back and forth between the multi-day VWAP levels. And then, yeah, the resistance, that's what you were saying. So yeah, little bits of support that then become resistance as the day develops. And look at how small the candles are around here versus how much progress it makes to the downside in that second half of the day as it gets below the 5-day reference point VWAP. Same sort of thing here with that out of nowhere yesterday VWAP support. And even if that's just where you exit a profitable short rather than maybe where you enter a long, for that's a very short-term long, doesn't really last. But it's useful to know why the market is rallying off of a certain level or a natural target for exiting or covering your intraday position. I don't know if I would have been short something like that. I mean, it obviously worked out, but I don't know if that would have been a trade I would have felt comfortable with especially given that we had just rallied, rip-roaring rally off that 5-day VWAP. And then, yeah, again, breaking down below it, come back up, effective support now becomes resistance, right? You can see it bouncing here and then aggressively moving to the downside. Great find. So look at that respect off that prior day's volume weighted average price. And then as it came, yeah, look at this. This had everything. Had morning consolidation, a rally off of that prior day's volume weighted average price, an attempted type 2, right? It pulls back to the deviation band. It does barely make a new high, then it comes back underneath. It downshifts out of the fast lane and into the slow lane, even with a little rejection when it attempts to cross there. Sharp move back under the VWAP, can't get back above the VWAP either attempt, and then kind of just is smashed between the intraday resistance and the support offered by that prior day's volume weighted average price. Incredible multi-day support there. So observing a chart that has gapped up or stretched far above based on huge volume and then comes back to the effective average point and is defended. I mean, isn't this in a nutshell what we are all looking for as VWAP traders? As technical traders at all, we're looking for credible support and resistance from which we can safely structure a trade with minimal but favorably asymmetric risk characteristics. I know that's a lot of words I just said in one sentence, but something where is reliable or credible support and resistance? That's step one. Step two, can we put our stop meaningfully and quite near term, not far away, on the other side of that structurable support? And then finally, does it work? Do other traders, other sizable traders, other influential traders, do they recognize it and do they trade off of it? Look at the kind of consolidation that we observe on the current day. Very flat, completely nothing on the VWAP slope. Struggles to get in the fast lane, struggles to get in the fast lane, over and over and over again. We're really just ping-ponging between intraday support and resistance and multi-day support and resistance, over and over. You can think about the market as different hierarchies of support and resistance, right, over different time frames. A lot of traders have said this with moving averages before. I think the difference in structure of a VWAP is that because we're not looking at a number of bars going backwards, we're only dealing with cumulatively from important events going forwards. We have a lot more credibility when it comes to why should this exhibit support?